Hello and welcome back to Simon's Rants. I'm Simon, and today I'm giving my on second thought on Rear Window. Well, that was a movie. No, that wasn't a mistake. No, you didn't click on the wrong video. That's just a tongue-in-cheek reference because, God, this movie. In case you don't know, The Woman in the Window was based on a novel by A.J. Finn and was directed by Joe Wright. It follows a woman, played by Amy Adams, who's trapped in her house because she's agoraphobic. While trapped in her house, though, she's able to look through her window and see her neighbor brutally murdered right across the street. Despite her best efforts in trying to tell people and trying to help, nobody believes her and she feels helpless. So, yeah. Now you know why I called it Rear Window. It's also a witness to murder, it's also Disturbia, it's a lot of things. And unfortunately, everything that it copies in this movie, we've seen done before better. Rear Window is a classic movie. I wouldn't call Disturbia the best movie in the world, but hey, it was better than this. I was intrigued by this movie not because of the interesting plot, because I thought this movie was going to be mediocre based on that plot. But then I saw Joe Wright was directing it, and he's worked with Gary Oldman, who's in this movie. He's worked with him before in The Darkest Hour, which I enjoyed a lot. He also did the Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice, which had good reviews and was considered a good adaptation. So I thought maybe this stellar cast with this good director can do something interesting with this plot. Maybe they know something I don't. So even though this feels like a retread, maybe they're doing something a little bit different. And spoiler, I'm just going to get into spoilers now because this movie's not good enough to have a regular and a spoiler section. So if you don't want anything spoiled, just whatever. It does stray from Rear Window a little bit. There's some interesting ideas in there. The biggest difference between this and Rear Window is that Amy Adams' character, who's like the Jimmy Stewart character in Rear Window, she's on a drug in this movie that can cause hallucinations. So you start to think maybe they're going to go with the twist that nothing happening before her eyes is actually happening, because they go with some trippy imagery and they mention some stuff and none of it looks real. It kind of feels like the whole twist is going to be that she was sleeping the whole time. One of those awful things where it's like, oh, it was a dream all along. And like you almost kind of wish that it is because everything's so cheesy. But they blow their load too early. They say that's the case when there's 40 minutes left in the movie. And so you're like, well, your one hope at doing something interesting with this plot is now thrown out the window, no pun intended. The one hope that this was going to end up being strikingly different from Rear Window is going that direction. Now the only other option is to revert back to, oh, yep, well, what you saw actually happened, and therefore we're back in Rear Window territory. Ooh. The other big difference, I guess, if you can qualify it as a big difference, is there's a family dynamic here where it's not just a man and a woman, there's also a son. And it ends up being that the son is the murderer, not the father. You're supposed to think it's the father. That's not really that convincing or interesting. You kind of think it's the son the whole time. I never read the book. Apparently it's done better in the book. I read a couple of blurbs about the book and it made it seem more interesting how they did it, especially at the ending, because the ending in the book, they have this whole thing where he comes to her and admits that he has issues with psychotic behavior and that he's scared of his dad because his dad's the one who murdered the woman, and she believes him but then realizes, oh wait, he said something that he shouldn't have known. He knew a detail about this that he shouldn't have known. So then she catches him and realizes that it's him doing it, and then you have the big reveal that, oh, it's him. In this, you just go from supposedly thinking it's the dad to him being like, hey, I've got a knife, I've been watching you, surprise. Like, and it's not entertaining. I mean, I already knew, like I said, I already knew that this plot wasn't going to be good. I went into this hoping that it would be entertaining because of a good director and good acting. Like, the cast is really good. You've got Amy Adams, you've got Gary Oldman, you've got Anthony Mackie, you've got Julianne Moore, you've got a bunch of different people that on paper should be a really great cast and a group of people that you could trust a movie with to turn into something entertaining, even if the material is a little subpar. But the acting was pretty bad in this movie. There was some okay acting from some people. I think Gary Oldman delivered a serviceable job. I've seen Gary Oldman be really, really good, and this was just, well, sure, he did enough. It kind of just felt like he just showed up to work and put in some work and then went home. Like, he didn't seem to care. He wasn't invested in this. And then Amy Adams, as the movie progressed and she began unraveling and different things of emotional weight happened with her, she got better, but she started from such a low threshold that it's like it wasn't hard to get better. She really was wooden. She really was bad for a good chunk of this movie. It was partially the dialogue, I'm sure. The dialogue was awful, but really she felt and sounded like she was discovering each word as she was saying it at times, which, yes, in theory, that's how people talk. They're trying to decide every word as they say it, but normally we think faster than that. Normally we know the entire sentence before we start saying it, and even when we don't, it's at a pause in the middle there, where you're like, I'm saying something and then I guess I'll finish it this way. But you don't generally pick each word at a time. You don't generally do that. And even if you do, one, that doesn't translate to film very well. You shouldn't do that. And two, it's not a common thing. It's not that common. Like, it really doesn't happen that often. And why would you do that in a performance? It was a bad choice. So as much as I love Amy Adams, she's a great actor. I love her in a lot of stuff. This wasn't it. It wasn't it for me. I thought Julianne Moore, in retrospect, was good. In hindsight, once you find out that her character is supposed to be crazy and annoying, but it wasn't fun to watch. It wasn't an entertaining crazy and weird. It was just uncomfortable. And maybe that's good. Maybe it should have been. Maybe in a better movie it would have fit. But this movie was just too boring. I really found myself oftentimes wanting to fast forward to the end just to see the ending. Not because I was that interested in what the ending was, just so that I could get the movie over with. Because I knew I was going to talk about it and I needed to know what happened at the end to make sure that it was as predictable as I thought it was. And it was. It wasn't good. The thing is, this movie overall wasn't awful. I would probably give it like a 5. Because it wasn't so bad it was unwatchable. The thing that made it unwatchable more than anything is I've seen everything done in this movie before. Not even just the Rear Window stuff. They were ripping off a ton of stuff. And everything that they ripped off was done better in the original thing. So they were just taking little bits and pieces from different movies and trying to make it all of their own. I guess I can't blame the movie as much as the book, because the book, it is a New York Times bestseller, but one, it's a young adult novel, so that doesn't mean as much. And two, isn't every book a New York Times bestseller? I feel like every book I've ever picked up has that plastered on the front, but whatever. Everything they copy, they don't do as well. They just don't do it as well. So it's like, at the end of the movie, I'm like, I've already seen all of this, but you just did all of it mediocre. And so I can't be mad that the movie is mediocre, but I can be mad that it wasted my time doing a mediocre version of something that I've already seen before. I've already seen Rear Window before. I probably should have seen it coming, and I kind of did, but I lied to myself and thought maybe it would be good. And it wasn't. So yeah, that's what I thought of it. What did you think of it? If you've seen it, let me know in the comments below. And of course, if you're new here, please remember to subscribe. Also, just like, share, all of that. Love you guys. Bye. I wish this movie was better than it was. I wish that didn't happen.